Today, I'm going to be breaking down some of my favorite tournament or GPP plays for this week 4 NFL Draftkings main slate. And like I always do here with these videos, we'll kick it off with a couple of my favorite game stacks to target, and then we'll transition into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks. With that being said, let's dive right into this. And the first game stack that I want to highlight here for week 4 is this game between the Dolphins and Bills. And yes, this is likely going to be a popular game stack to target in general, which is part of the reason I stacked it up here with Josh Allen, James Cook, and Dawson Knox, running it back with Raheem Mostert. I feel like that is going to be a unique stack here in this game. Now, don't get me wrong, we can still mix in a Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, or Stephon Diggs, even a Gabe Davis or Dalton Kincaid if you wanted to go that route. Really a number of different ways that we can approach this, but I feel like stacking up Josh Allen with his running back for starters is a great way to make your lineup different. And it's not like you don't get that correlation there with James Cook and Josh Allen. He's a great pass-catching running back. Honestly, the only downfall with rostering Cook is they haven't been using him at the goal line. They've been bringing in Damian Harris and Latavius Murray. Outside of that, James Cook has looked really good here through the first 3 weeks of the season. And then Dawson Knox, a cheap stacking option there. If he happens to score a touchdown, he's likely meeting value. And then again, running it back there with Raheem Mostert. You know, the Bills, they have a great defense, great through the passing game, great through the running game, but they have been a little susceptible in their running game, really just giving up big explosive plays from time to time, and Raheem Mostert has that burst of speed where he could have 1 or 2 big plays here in this game. Now overall, like I said, going to be a really popular game to target. Highest implied total here on the main slate at 53.5 points, as Dolphins offense ranks first overall in total offensive DVOA, Bills rank 5th, and not that I want to go off of last year's stats, but there were some fireworks in their last game last year, which ended up finishing 32-29 in the Bills' favor. And then another game that I like targeting here in week 4 is this game between the Colts and Rams. Playing indoors, always like a dome game, and I like stacking up Anthony Richardson with his #1 wide receiver in Michael Pittman, and then running it back with Kyren Williams and Puka Nacua. Now this game here has an implied total of 46 points, which is the 5th most on the main slate, but I definitely think we could see the over here, largely due to the number of plays that should be run in this game. Right now, the Colts rank first overall in terms of pace of play, while the Rams rank 11th. So again, we should see a lot of plays in this game just based off of that statistic alone. On top of that, this Rams defense hasn't been very good this year, ranking 26th overall in defensive DVOA. That obviously bodes well for this Colts offense in general, and due to Anthony Richardson's rushing upside, I'm just going to keep it simple, stacking him up with one pass catcher. And if you wanted to pivot off of Pittman, you could save a lot of money with Josh Downs too. Now on the Rams side, I kind of highlighted this in my cash videos yesterday. If you haven't checked that out, make sure you go do so. But I basically highlighted those two because a lot of the volume in this Rams offense is going through those guys. Now you could mix in a Tutu Atwell or a Tyler Higbee. I have no problem with that, but I want Williams and Puka for the most part. You know, Williams is on the field a lot, and I love how they're using him in the passing game. And this Colts defense will struggle with pass-catching running backs from time to time, and Puka Nacua has been able to exploit zone defenses so far this year, and it just so happens that this Colts defense is running zone about 80% of the time. So again, really like both of those guys, but this is another game stack where I think we can mix in a few different pieces. Now folks, before we dive into some of my favorite individual plays and stacks here, few things. For starters, appreciate you all liking these videos, subscribing to the channel, commenting. It truly helps me out. I'm trying to build a brand here with GriffDogg Sports, and every time you guys interact with these videos, it helps push it to new people. So thank you all for doing that. Also want to mention I am running a Draftkings League and a Discord channel. If you want to join those, it's completely free to do so. Links in the description below. Now I'm talking GriffDogg Sports here. One entertainment segment we brought to the channel this past summer is called Mulligan Masters. You guys got some free time, check it out. Here's a little preview to that.
Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. Kind of a hope and a prayer. Shot of this thing. That's a pancake.
That's a pancake pan right there.
Yeah, it's probably not worth it though.
That was for you.
That was all the first putt scout.
I do have the right
Three
club.
over there now?
How far was this?
Right, now let's dive into some quarterbacks that I like as some individual plays and stacks here this week, and we're going to kick it off with Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers, sitting at $7,800 on DraftKings here this week, in a really good matchup at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. We need about 31.2 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. Again, love this matchup against this Raiders defense, who ranks 29th overall in pass DVOA, and it just so happens that this Chargers offense has made their money through the air through the first 3 weeks, ranking 5th overall in offensive pass DVOA. Plus, it sounds like Austin Eckler is doubtful here in week 4. Chargers do have a bye in week 5. They're going to use that for him to get fully healthy, come back in week 6. So I suspect that the Chargers are going to use that passing game here again, especially considering the matchup against this Raiders secondary. We don't have Mike Williams here anymore for the rest of the season, but that should lead to more opportunities for Joshua Palmer and Quentin Johnston, who I'm going to talk about later in this video. And then another quarterback that I like here this week is Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos. And hey folks, I get it, putting your money on this Broncos offense hasn't been what I would call profitable over the last year and a half. But with that being said, this is a great matchup against Chicago here this week. And at $5,800 on DraftKings, we'd only need 23.2 DraftKings points in order for Russ to hit 4x value. And just look at how bad this Bears defense has been. They rank 31st overall in pass DVOA for starters. They've allowed the 3rd highest yards per attempt to quarterbacks, 4th highest passer rating, and the 5th most fantasy points. Plus, on top of that, Russ has actually been kind of good versus zone defense, and this Bears defense runs zone about 60% of the time. As you can see there, he's got the 5th most fantasy points per dropback against zone defenses. Now, moving on to the running backs here, and one guy who I think is being a bit overlooked based on his price and matchup is Josh Jacobs. And hey, look, I know he's had a slow start to the season here. Jimmy G is questionable playing for Sunday. I certainly like this play a lot more if Jimmy G does play. But at $7,100 here against the Chargers, I think Jacobs is in play either way. We need 28.4 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. Volume certainly hasn't been an issue. He's averaging close to 19 touches a game. And this Chargers defense is allowing the 6th most yards after contact to running backs. On top of that, they rank 27th overall in rush DVOA. So again, I know that Josh Jacobs hasn't played great to start the season, but he kind of started the season slow last year and then really just blew up towards the second half of the year. Now, maybe this is a get-right spot for him on the road, but like I said, I like it better overall if Jimmy G does play. The next running back I got on my list here then is DeAndre Swift of the Philadelphia Eagles, who clearly looks like the running back 1 in this offense going forward. He's been super explosive in his last 2 games, and sitting at a really nice price here at $5,700 on DraftKings. We need 22.8 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value, and I love the volume he's gotten here in his last 2 games, averaging 24 touches per game and 160 total yards per game. Small sample size for sure, but like I said, he's looked really explosive, and this Commanders defense has allowed the 5th highest explosive run rate to running backs so far this year. So on paper, this looks like a really good matchup for Swift. And then a cheaper running back play who's got a little boom bust appeal is Roschon Johnson of the Chicago Bears, sitting at $4,900 on DraftKings. And yes, Khalil Herbert is technically still the RB1 in this offense, but beat writers out of Chicago think that Roschon could take over here sooner than later, especially considering how bad this Bears team has been through the first 3 weeks of the season. At $4,900, we need 19.6 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. This is a guy who's seen his snap share count go up every single week. Again, he could take over as RB1 here sooner than later. And this matchup at home is just fantastic. This Denver defense ranks 30th overall in rush DVOA. And just last week, we all know that Dolphins team had their running backs go for 350 rushing yards and score 5 touchdowns. And then I got a few wide receivers here as well. Again, make sure you go check out my cash plays video. I talked about some wide receivers in there that are offering some nice value, like Adam Thielen and Tank Dell. But we're going to highlight Jamar Chase here, and we're only 3 weeks into the season. I don't want to say I'm beating a dead horse yet. If I went back to Joe Burrow, I might be doing that. But I look at this matchup here against the Tennessee Titans, and yes, I do want to go back to these Bengals wide receivers, and I guess If I created a contest in the Millie Maker with Joe Burrow this week, I wouldn't be surprised. This Titans secondary is truly awful. They were the worst secondary in the NFL last year. They're the 5th worst this year in terms of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. They rank 26th overall in pass DVOA. And it's not like the volume isn't going to Jamar Chase. It's just that Joe Burrow hasn't looked great to start the season, but this is still a guy who's got a 26% target share, 36% of the team's air yards, 36% of the team's first read share, and we need 31.2 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value at this price, a $7,800 on DraftKings, but we all know that Jamar Chase can do that, especially in a matchup like this. We just need Joey B to be slightly better this week. The next guy I got on my list here is Joshua Palmer of the Chargers. Name dropped him earlier when I was talking about Justin Herbert, and for what it's worth, everyone, if you want to roster Quentin Johnston here at $3,700, I have no problem with that, but the rookie hasn't been on the field all that much here to start the season, whereas Joshua Palmer's got a little more experience. We know the role that he has in this Chargers offense, and at $4,000 here, we only need 16 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. I talked about this with Herbert, but I love the matchup here against this Raiders defense. I'll highlight a few other things here, though, in particular to Palmer. In this offense here, he's got a 21% target share and 19% first read share against man coverage, and it just so happens that this Raiders defense runs the 9th most man coverage in the NFL. And then another cheap value wide receiver that I like this week that we could stack up with Russell Wilson is Marvin Mims Jr. of the Broncos. Now, I'm sure everyone's aware of this. Mims has not played much this year, but when he's on the field, he looks ridiculously explosive, and the word on the street here is, via the beat writers out of Denver, based off of practices this week, we could see more Mims against the Chicago Bears. Now, I do want to mention that I think Cortland Sutton's really nice in the low 5K range as well, if you do want to go that route, but at $3,900 here for Mims, we need 15.6 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value, and again, this Bears defense is just flat out awful, ranking 31st overall in pass DVOA. And then I got a couple of tight ends here for you guys, and I mentioned this in my cash video yesterday. The tight end position is kind of just flat out gross here in week 4, but one guy I would be willing to spend up for in my tournament lineups is George Kittle of the 49ers, sitting at $5,100 on DraftKings. We need 20.4 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. He's very capable of doing that, especially in a matchup like this against the Cards, who have kind of had the flow chart against them over the last, 3 to 5 years. If you've been playing DFS, you generally target tight ends against this Cardinals defense. That really hasn't changed here in 2023. They've allowed the 4th most receiving yards and the 6th highest yards per reception to tight ends. I will say this about Kittle, I like him a lot more if Deebo Samuel does not play here in week 4. Sounds like he's going to be a true game time decision. And I know I highlighted that game between the Colts and Rams earlier. I didn't talk about Granson, but if you want to go with a cheap punt stacking option with Anthony Richardson, I think we could go this route here with Granson at $3,000. Only need 12 DraftKings points in order for him to meet 4x value. Yeah, he's only got a 12% target share, but he is on the field about 60% of the time, so considering the price here and a cheaper option to stack with Richardson and how gross the tight end position here is in week 4, I certainly don't mind it. And then wrapping up the positional plays here with a couple of defenses. I have no problem spending up for defense in my tournament lineups. That's every week. I have no problem doing that. I actually have the Eagles in one of my tournament lineups as we speak. But 2 defenses that I like here in the 2K range are the Texans and Browns. I like the Texans defense here due to the matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. At $2,900, we need 11.6 DraftKings points in order for them to meet 4x value. And the Steelers' offensive line is not great. They've allowed the 3rd most pressure in the NFL so far this year at almost a 44% rate. And Kenny Pickett has 3 interceptions and has taken 8 sacks in 3 games so far this year. And then with the Browns defense here, I don't necessarily love the matchup at home against Baltimore, but I do love what I've seen from this defense so far this year. Probably the best defense we've seen through 3 weeks. At $2,800, we need 11.2 DraftKings points in order for them to meet 4x value. This defense has allowed a total of 18 points through 3 weeks. That's 0.51 points per drive. That's absolutely ridiculous. They got the third best pressure rate at 40.5%, and they're allowing just 164 yards per game as well. Again, the Baltimore Ravens could certainly go above that, but this Browns defense has been lights out through 3 weeks. Alright everyone, that is going to wrap up this video here for today. As always, thank y'all for taking the time out of your day to watch the content here on this channel. If you could like this video and subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Let's have ourselves a great weekend here, folks. Let's win some money on this week 4 main slate. In the meantime, I'm out of here.